So today I have something particular in mind, as the title says. We're gonna do it. At first, I was actually thinking about doing kind of a tournament of weapons, where you have like a roster and this weapon versus that, which is the winner, and then the winner moves on to the next round, and so on and so forth. But I think for now, we can just do kind of individual pairs, this versus that, and then we're going to look at the pros and cons and all of that. So should be interesting. So I've got several different criteria or areas, whatever you want to call it, where a weapon needs to perform. And there. Okay. It's not the greatest layout ever, but it'll do. Okay. And I want you to make suggestions. Which ones should we compare? So I want one type each. At first I want to do just swords, but we might as well do whatever, really. Whatever you want. And let's shove this. No, that don't work. Arms and armor, pole arms versus a long shovel. At this point, I'm starting to wonder if the shovel would not last longer before breaking. Yeah, I generally like arms and armor, and I generally think that they make usually very good pole arms, but after a number of failures, I'm starting to wonder. Anyway, so specific suggestions. What should we compare? Let's take a look at the chat here. Huh. Halberd versus quarterstaff. Yeah, you know what? Let's do that. Let's do that. So, halberd and quarterstaff. So, what else would be kind of useful to show that? There we go. So, as far as use on the battlefield is concerned, halberd, of course, excellent. Quarterstaff is not so much a battlefield weapon, really, but it would be pretty decent. The only problem is, against either light or heavy armor, the halberd is going to outperform the quarterstaff. It's no question, really, because you have the blade, you can thrust with it, you can do so much more than with a quarterstaff. In fact, it's a bit of a spoiler, but I can already tell you that the halberd is going to win generally. But let's do this. So what I have here to decide or to mark the winner in each category is the golden pommel. So, battlefield against light armor, halberd. The quarterstaff does fine against an opponent with light armor, but the halberds are just going to do more damage easily. Against heavy armor, definitely halberd, no questions asked. I mean, again, you can batter somebody pretty good. You can bash the helmet with a quarterstaff. It is going to potentially knock them out. It's going to be effective, but halberd, yeah. Open space. Duel in an open space on even ground. They both are long, so the quarterstaff is going to be a little bit faster, for sure. The halberd is going to hit a lot harder and gives you more options. It's more versatile. So I would still have to give this to the halberd. Duel in confined space. Now in this case, neither is good. Neither is good. In confined spaces, a pole is just bad news. assuming that, I mean, if the halberd is longer, we have a problem, obviously. So if the halberd is longer than the quarterstaff, may be at an advantage, but on the other hand, on the halberd you have a point, so you can bring it in very close to your body and you can still work with a point. So this is kind of a draw, almost. It really depends on the exact length and the exact type, all of that. So I don't know, I kind of want to skip this for now. Self-defense against multiple attackers, easy. The quarterstaff is good, but the halberd is just gonna tear through them more effectively. Ease of carry. This is definitely where the quarterstaff wins. I mean, it's lighter. It doesn't have points and blades sticking out. It's a walking stick, basically. Easy. Durability and maintenance. Halberd requires more maintenance, but is going to last longer for the most part, because you can actually parry with the steel blade. You don't have to take everything on the wood of the staff. So yeah, harder to maintain, but definitely more durable. So I'd have to give this to the halberd. And then price is obvious. It's a stick. Of course, it's going to be much more affordable than a halberd. So overall, halberd wins. It's pretty easy. And you know what? I'm actually starting to think I should resize this a little bit. There. Because my head doesn't have to be this big right here. Okay. So Scott suggests Basket Hill Broadsword versus Infantry Saber. Now we're getting into the finer nitty-gritty. So let's do that. First off, I'm going to delete all the bommels. Actually, I think it's probably quicker if I do it this way. There we go. So, broadsword versus infantry saber. In fact, yeah, I can probably, I can squeeze the basket hilt in there too. There. Might as well. Okay. Show images. I'm not sure where to squeeze images in here as well. This is already pretty cramped. Yeah, I can't really put them here easily, unless you want me to wait to grab a picture and resize it and fit it in every time. Kind of sucks, doesn't it? But I'll at least show them once. Let's see, do we have a picture of an original? Museum picture maybe somewhere? I mean, you get the idea. That's what it is. Sabers, of course, come in all kinds of different varieties. Wait, why did I put an S there? Can be straight, can be curved. I think the most iconic saber is curved. We can agree on that, right? So shall we go with curved saber? Something like, I don't know, what is the most iconic? Yeah, something like this. I think that's what we can keep in mind. All right. So let's go right ahead here. Battlefield against light armor. I think they're going to be... They are going to be very comparable, I think. Very much so. So that's a tricky one. This could go either way. I think against light armor, I kind of want to say saber. Here, let's grab the pommel. Just because, you know, a curved blade in a slicing motion does pretty well. Plus, sabers are usually more top heavy than broadswords. So in terms of cutting power, I think we can say against soft targets, probably the saber. Again, it depends very much on the individual type. There are sabers with relatively narrow blades that don't cut anywhere near as well. But I think as a rule of thumb, probably we can say reasonable. Against heavy armor, both kind of suck compared to a lot of other types. In this case, I would actually say it goes to the broadsword. Why? Not because you can cut through the armor, obviously, but because with a straight blade, you will have an easier time thrusting into the gaps of the armor. So you could actually half sword the broadsword more easily and use that to exploit the weaknesses in the armor. So in that sense, I think I would have to give it to the broadsword here. Dual, open space, even ground. Pretty freaking equal, I would say, whether you have a basket hilt broadsword or a saber. If I would let just my personal bias and opinion speak, I would say the basket hilt broadsword, because it gives you even more hand protection than the saber. Not much, to be fair, not much. But the broadsword is more agile. Generally, it's balanced closer to the hilt, usually, than a saber, and it's better at thrusts, I would say. Not that you can't thrust with a saber, but I think in terms of versatility, like personally, I would pick the broadsword. Let's put it that way. What do you guys think? In fact, you know what? Let's as Scott says, basket hilt broadsword is overall heavier than saber. I'm not sure I can agree with that. There's a lot of variation within broadswords and sabers. I've handled some really light broadswords. I'm thinking particularly the Hanwei basket hilt broadsword or backsword actually, is pretty light and agile, or at least it feels like it because you have that much mass in the hilt. But let's see if I can't just throw a poll in here to let people decide. Let's see. Let's see which has the advantage. Basket hilt, broadsword, infantry, saber. Okay, so I just added the poll. Hopefully it'll show up. It should. So let me know if you can see it. Usually those cards, they usually show up in the upper right corner. Let me know if you can see that, and if you can, vote on it. It should work, but you never know. Can't see it? That sucks. What's the point of those damn cards then? No, wait. Somebody can see it. There are votes coming in, so At least some people see it. Okay, most people say, oh, you need to refresh. Yeah, that's probably correct. You probably need to refresh the page to see it. You should be able to see it on the phone. As far as I know, cards work on phones. So yeah, we may have to refresh. There are some votes coming in. Well, 3 so far. Not a whole lot. But somebody is seeing it. This is the quickest way for me to do this, I think. Oh, there we go. 40 responses so far. Okay, the Basket Hill Broadsword is in the clear lead. We have 70% so far for the broadsword. After refresh, where would it be? There should be a white circle with an I in there, like the letter I in the upper right corner. That's where you would see it. Okay. And meanwhile, while you guys vote, I'll take a look at some other super chats here. Meteor hammer or rope dart versus sword. That's easy. Sword, by far. The thing is, meteor hammer or rope dart would be tricky. It's a shenanigansy kind of weapon. It's hard to really, like, it can come from unexpected angles, and it's kind of weird to you know, to know what to expect. But it has no defensive capability. Like, if the fighter with a sword just takes the initiative and is aggressive, you're screwed. There's not much you can do. Zweihänder versus longsword. Yeah, I guess we can do that as well. There's some more suggestions. Stone armor versus longsword. We're not doing armor right now. Thanks for the suggestion, but I just want to do weapons right now. Let's stick to one thing. Okay. There's some good suggestions. We can definitely do those. Okay, so I'll take the final result here of the poll. Let's see. What do you guys think? So 94 responses, 67% Basket Hill Broadsword. So you definitely think the Broadsword wins over the Infantry Saber in a duel. Yeah, I would agree. I would say that it definitely, if I had to pick one of those, yeah. Okay. Confined space. I mean, a lot of the same really applies here. In this case, they are very close to the same length, or at least similar, and it doesn't really make a difference. So this is just same result for duel in this case. I would say if it has the upper hand or even a slight advantage in a duel in an open space, it's going to be the same in confined space. In fact, potentially even more, because again, half swording is an option with a broadsword. Wasn't generally done with them, but you can potentially do that with a straight blade like that. You can technically do it with a curved blade too. It's just more difficult and not as versatile. Now, against multiple attackers, this is a tricky one. Against multiple, like the broadsword definitely has the edge, or I guess the point in the thrust. But thrusts are not something you want to do against multiple attackers. And what you also don't want to do is get your sword stuck in someone or something. And the broadsword would generally be more flexible for the most part, just because of the cross-section. And so either... And more flexible means that there's more chance for it to get stuck in a body or, you know, against armor, etc. And I think with a curved blade, you can deliver cuts that are effective but don't penetrate extremely deeply necessarily, depending on how you use it. So, and also, I think cutting off limbs is probably more likely with a saber. So I think against multiple attackers, I would personally give it to the saber here. Like, not a dramatic advantage, but I think against more than one, saber is probably the way to go. Ease of carry. Now this is going to be pretty equal for the most part. They are comparable length. They both have extensive handguard. I don't think it makes much of a difference. So, yeah, whichever. I don't think I don't think either of those has an advantage over the other here. In terms of durability and maintenance, again, really, really similar. I don't see a big difference here. With a double-edged blade, if one edge gets damaged or dulled to the point where it becomes difficult to use, or it becomes less effective to use, you still have another. At the same time, the shape of the hilt forces your hand into one position. So if you wanted to use the other edge, it will have to be a false edge cut. You can't just flip it around and use the false edge as the main cutting edge. So I don't think it matters in this case. Basket hilt broadsword versus infantry saber on price. I think the infantry saber can be produced at a lower price overall. It's a simpler shape. Like the hilt is just a little simpler, and the construction overall is just a bit simpler than the broadsword. So I would expect the saber to be cheaper to produce overall. So we have 3 versus 3 actually. So these two are still quite or relatively even overall. Unless of course you want to value these higher, which makes sense. Just the actual use in a fighting situation. In that sense, the broadsword would take it, but overall, even enough, I would say. All right, next two. Zweihander versus longsword. This should be quick. This should be fairly quick. All right. On the battlefield against light armor. I mean, the Zweihander is going to do more damage. Clearly. Quite a bit more. I mean, okay, we also shouldn't overestimate it. But it's going to be more difficult to use on the battlefield because it requires more space. However, they were used on battlefields historically. So I almost want to say they're pretty even, fairly evenly matched here. In fact, on the battlefield against heavy armor, you may think Zweihander because it hits harder. But then again, the longsword has half swording, thrusting into the gaps of the armor, which would be more difficult with a greatsword. I mean, you can still do it, but it's just that much more to handle. So it would be harder to control the point precisely and all of that. You don't have less space to work with. So that's tricky. I'll take the ones that are easier. In a duel, in open space, on even ground, easy. That's easily the greatsword, just because it has all the reach, it has power. It makes it very hard to approach. Confined space, again, easy. I mean, come on. The huge sword is going to be at quite a disadvantage. Multiple attackers, easily, greatsword. That's one of its main benefits. Ease of carry, once again, easy. Longsword is going to be way simpler to carry. Durability and maintenance. I don't see that much of a difference. I mean, other than with the larger sword, there's more to oil and clean. So you could say maybe longsword has a bit of an advantage here, but not a whole lot really. Price, longsword is going to be a little bit cheaper. So as far as battlefield use is concerned, you can argue either way here, in my opinion. I mean, you could say against heavy armor, yeah, just bash him with a greatsword. You can, but in close quarters, it's gonna suck compared to the longsword, at least. Light armor. I mean, if you want to say just sheer power, just almost cleave him in half, then I guess that goes to the greatsword. How about that? Okay. I need to spend less time on each match because we're getting so many suggestions here. Okay, so next one is Peterson type C sword. That's getting very specific here. Let's show first what it looks like. So we've got pretty much one of the most iconic classic Viking swords, and the Kyber knife, which you may have seen. I mean, you've clearly seen Viking swords before. Who hasn't? This is interesting. This is almost like a Viking sword versus sax. This is kind of crazy, actually. But yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Why not? Shouldn't take that long. So let me just, for simplicity, just put in Viking sword, okay? Just so people know what is meant. Kyber sword. Never mind. So battlefield light armor, easy. More reach, more power, more devastation, etc. Heavy armor. You know what? I may actually have to give it to the knife here. As ironic as it may seem, but if you're dealing with somebody in a full suit of plate armor, bashing them with a Viking sword is going to inconvenience them. I mean, it's going to suck to be bashed with a sword like that. But it's actually more dangerous to end up in a grappling situation where somebody can stab you into the gaps of the armor with a knife. So, as ironic as it may seem, I would actually give it to the knife here. Frankly. Open space, even ground, simple. Again, reach, power, everything. You got it all here. So, yeah, that's really no competition. Confined space. This depends on how confined. It really does. It depends a lot on just how confined. But a Viking sword is not really one that you could have sword easily by any means. So in that case, I'd have to give it to the knife. Multiple attackers, simple. Ease of carry, again, simple. Durability and maintenance. I mean, the smaller thing is going to be potentially easier to maintain, but durability, that's arguable. I don't know enough about the Kyber knife to know what the material quality was, so I don't know about that. Price, I would assume definitely the knife. So, the knife actually got more pommels here. Huh? Interesting. Interesting. So we can definitely come up with some unexpected results here and there. Okay, then we've got... yeah, Yeah, again, not armor. We'll not do that. English longbow-sized arbalest versus flintlock musket. A lot of the categories that I picked out don't really apply to ranged weapons. So I'd say maybe let's stick to melee weapons for now. It's a good suggestion, don't get me wrong, but I think I would have to set up the categories and the criteria a little differently to make that work better. And then Sika versus Kukri. Oh, that's a good one. I like that. That's interesting. I mean, there's been a number of good suggestions so far, but this is pretty intriguing. Sika versus Kukri. Battlefield, light armor. What I've really noticed over and over again is the Falks and Sika is basically just the smaller version. Just tears right into softer armor. You know, a Gambison, or even something fairly like medium type armor, if you will, something that's fairly resistant, like something like, say, boiled leather. This just rips right through. As effective as the Kukri is, just the point of the Sika is devastating. So I would have to give that to the Sika. Against heavy armor, neither of those are going to be great. At least if we're talking full plate. I think in this case, if I had to deal with heavy armor, I think I would actually just flip the Kukri around and strike with the spine, because they generally have a very thick spine. They're pretty hefty overall. So I think the Kukri will probably take that. Duel on open space on even ground. I think they're comparable enough that neither of them really has a distinct advantage here. At least I think so. Confined space, same thing really. They can be pretty comparable. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Here, let me set up another poll here. So we got Sika and Kukri. And so yeah, and in order to see that, you will have to refresh the page again and then click on the info thing. The round, wait, it's up here. Like the round thing with the letter I in it. And meanwhile, I should also show you the two. So here is the Sika. Right, I just realized I wasn't thinking of this type. Actually, I was thinking of... Yeah, you know what? I should have shown this before. I was thinking of the knife type, really. This, basically. The one that I got recently. Yeah, I was thinking something like this. Because this is really more of a sword. I was thinking more the knife type Sika. If I was talking about the sword, that would be different. So that really depends. And then Kukri, of course. Everybody knows the Kukri, right? So yeah, this really depends which Sika we're talking about. The Kukri has no guard, neither does the Sika, usually. Again, unless we're talking the sword. It has a bit of a guard. But the Sika knife doesn't have a guard either. Let's see, results. So far the Kukri is in the lead. 62%. Alright. Let's see. While people are voting, take a look at all the other super chats. And sorry that I can't even take a look at the regular chat right now. This is taking a lot longer than usual to cover each of those suggestions, and the super chats are piling up, so I have to prioritize those. Sorry, folks. Whip sword versus chain. That's an interesting idea. Guitar versus dagger. Okay. Naginata versus Nodachi. That's pretty good. Okay. Wow. I may not even, for the first time during a live stream, I may not even be able to catch all the super chats. And if I don't, I apologize. But that's a lot. Since I have to spend so much time on each one, they pile up. Anyway, next, I'll check the poll once more, and then we'll go with that. Okay, so we have 49 responses now, 59. Okay, so the Sika, the Sika has started to catch up. Maybe I should wait a little longer. Okay. So, for the sake of argument, I'm still talking about the Sika knife. But, yeah, sword is going to be different. Ease of carry, I don't think that makes much of a difference. Self-defense against multiple attackers. I think for that one, I would say the kukri. Just because the kukri is less likely to get stuck, I think. Sika with the curvature and its finer point and everything, it's more of a risk. Ease of carry, that really makes no difference. Durability and maintenance. This I would have to actually give to the kukri because they are just pretty much indestructible. It's kind of ridiculous. Price, I'm honestly not sure. Both should be fairly cheap to make. I mean, the cheapest option, let's put it that way. Either you can make in a very elaborate way, you can always do high-end versions, but I think overall they're going to be pretty similar. Okay, so one more refresh and we'll see where the votes are at. We are at 58% kukri and 41% Sika. All right. Let's go with that then. And that's really going to be the same. So it looks like the kukri wins, in fact, pretty decisively. Now, if we were talking about the Sika sword, we would have to change things a little bit. Because in that case, I would have to say... probably still kukri against heavy armor. And a duel, definitely, if it's the sword, then absolutely it would be here. In that case, it would be the Sika. Confined space would be the kukri. Multiple attackers, Sika sword. Ease of carry, kukri. And probably still kukri here. So this would be if it was the sword, right? So more even, but even then the kukri is doing quite well. Anyway, All right, next one. We have Urumi versus Chain. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and say that the Urumi is probably generally gonna be the better weapon than a simple chain, because a chain is just an improvised weapon. It's just a random object. So I think in that case, the whip sword, yeah, Urumi. I think we can pretty much say across the board except price. So that one is pretty easy, I think. But here's a good one. Guitar versus dagger. Just a standard dagger. So here, I'm assuming everybody knows what I have to enter Qatar daggers so it doesn't show me Qatar the place. So everybody knows what a Qatar is like, right? Pretty much. So, and a dagger, there's so many different versions. Yeah, kind of the standard medieval dagger. That's kind of the most iconic, I guess. That's probably what most people think of when they think dagger. So let's see what we've got here. We're against light armor. Oh, this is good. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be very interesting. That's a difficult one. That's a really tricky one. I think I would probably give it to the Qatar against light armor, just because you have that much more power. Like, you can punch really hard with that and it'll deliver the force very effectively. Against heavy armor, a lot of Qatars actually have a reinforced tip to use against armor, against mail primarily. You could still thrust into the gaps of the armor. However, you have more options with a dagger because you can hold the dagger in different ways. You can hold it tip up, tip down. You can change the grip depending on the situation, and you have more angles because the Qatar is just fixed in alignment with your forearm. So the only way you can change the angle is by rotating either your elbow or your shoulder. You can't do it by rotating the wrist. So I think the dagger wins here just because of versatility. It's easier to employ, or deploy, rather. That's what I think. Open space, even ground. I would give it to the Qatar here, I think, because you can parry with it better. I mean, even if we're not talking about a hooded Qatar would be. But then again, if we look at a hooded Qatar, we also have to look at like a left-hand dagger or something like with a clamshell guard, so it's fair. So, but even then, I mean, you have the handles, like the grip bar, no, not handles, the grip bars basically on the side of the Qatar. They could actually be used to parry with. You don't have that with a dagger. And again, pretty powerful. Confined space. Both very good here. I would potentially, again, give it maybe to the dagger just because of, again, versatility and more different angles. Yeah. I'll ask you folks again. Let's see which wins in confined, or I don't know. Let's do again the same question as before. So Qatar and dagger. Okay, poll is up. So again, refresh, click on the info icon in the upper right corner, and then you can vote. Would the dagger type make a difference in dueling? Yeah, it would. It does very much depend on the type of dagger. Like if you have say a rondel dagger versus a Mongosh, or versus, so many different types of daggers. There's spiked daggers, there's bladed daggers, there's, a lot of different types. So that really comes down to personal preference and how you interpret them, basically, which specific subtype you're looking at, basically. That would matter here. For sure. Okay. What else do we have going on here? Those are all good suggestions. The Uno reverse card beats everything. Okay. All the weapons. Okay. Yeah, those are all good suggestions. I'll just have to speed up to try to catch up to them. What are we talking about right now? What the title says. Which weapon wins? So currently we have a poll going on, about whether a Qatar or a kind of generic dagger has the advantage in a duel, specifically confined spaces, but also in general. Oh yeah, people are saying dagger, like by far. 81% say dagger and 18% say Qatar. Where does the 1% always go? Oh well. So dagger wins by far. That's what people think. Okay, so dagger it is. Multiple attackers. I would give this one to the Qatar, I think. Just because here, with a powerful punching thrust, I think it would actually be easier to just punch in, retract it immediately without it getting stuck, and just move on to the next attacker. I think in this way, yeah, I would give it to the Qatar. Ease of carry there, I would fairly, I mean, it's not a dramatic difference, but I would have to give it to the dagger. You can carry that in quite a number of ways. Qatar's probably a little more limited. Durability and maintenance. I don't really see that much of a difference. It's pretty equal here. Price, I know that daggers are cheaper in general. Qatars can get pretty pricey. So overall the dagger takes it, but not by much. They are pretty neck to neck, or head to head, or whatever. All right, next one. Naginata versus Nodachi. All right. The Naginata. The constantly nagging Nada. Okay, that was terrible. So, battlefield, light armor. I would say Nodachi, simply because you have a longer edge. Yeah, more slicing action, more cutting power against softer targets, I think. And yeah. I mean, in formation, the Naginata might be better, but there's still some factors. But I think overall, I would probably say against light armor, probably Nodachi. Against heavy armor, I'd have to say Naginata. Just pole arms generally do way better against heavy armor. You know, unless we're talking, as said, stabbing into the gaps of the armor, which with either is not going to be easily done. Half sorting with a Nodachi, I don't really see it. Doesn't really seem very feasible. Open space, even ground, reach wins for the most part. Reach and just a little more power. Confined space, I mean, they're both going to suck, but the Nodachi a little less so, I think. Multiple attackers. That's a difficult one. That is difficult. You can argue in a number of ways. Thrusts against multiple attackers can be risky. With a pole arm, less so. But I mean, if you do get stuck, you're screwed. but it's still pretty effective. So with a Nodachi, sweeping cuts against multiple opponents, definitely useful. Let's see. No, Naginata and Nodachi. So another poll is up. Refresh, hit the info button, and there you go. And then we shall see what people think. How about that? Okay. What else is going on here? Igorot headhunting axe versus Hungarian axe. I would be biased. With this one, I'd say Igorot all the way. I mean, okay, the one that I have. The one that I have versus the Hungarian axe that I have, Igorot, 100%. It's a monster. It wrecks. It wrecks things real hard. If you go by the originals, then the Igorot axes, they may have been made of iron. I don't know for sure, but it's probably iron, whereas the Hungarian axe would be steel. I think so. Material quality, that would probably go to the axe, the Hungarian axe. I mean, but I think this one I can probably leave at the summary. Like, just in terms of design, I think that one is just beastly. City situation, conventional, Renaissance, open carry sword. Your choice versus a full metal cane. That's to me, that's pretty easy. Sword is way more useful. More versatile, more useful, more dangerous, etc. as far as I'm concerned. But thank you. Lantern shield versus Indian pata. I mean, it's weird. It's fun for sure, but pata. The lantern shield is too ridiculous. I mean, I do not consider it to be a very practical design, frankly. I think that the pata would blow it out the water easily. Okay, so let's check the poll results. Naginata versus Nodachi. Oh, that's a close one. Unsurprisingly, I think I'll have to wait a little longer. We have 53% in favor of the Nodachi. So, yeah, we'll need a little more time here, I think. Okay. What else we got? That was, yeah, the Uno thing. Australian boa knife versus 80s American flick blade. Huh. Okay. Okay. I mean, I don't really have the right categories for that, because battlefield use doesn't apply to those. Dual open space, not really. I mean, dual as such, not really, but okay, confined space maybe. Self-defense against multiple attackers, okay. Ease of carry, yep. The ability, yeah, I mean, some of those categories apply. But let me actually take a look at that. I'm not sure I've seen a lot of those. Especially if that's really what you meant. I'm assuming you meant a Bowie knife? I was thinking, like, what is a boa knife? Never heard of that. But you probably mean a Bowie. So, that makes more sense. So, Australian Bowie. I mean, what? Do you mean a switchblade? Yeah, I'm assuming you mean, yeah, a switchblade. I mean, if that's really what we're talking here, then that's easy buoy. In every way, except ease of carry. This is going to be easier to carry, but the buoy is just going to dominate it in everything else, except price, maybe. But yeah, that's easy. Okay, I'll check once more, and hopefully we have a winner between Naginata and Nodachi. Oh, maybe it's yeah. We have a tentative winner, yeah. 54% Nodachi. So people just prefer it slightly more. Just slightly. But they're pretty equal, which makes sense. This whole question is a troll? Yeah. It probably is. But either way. Whatever. I mean, yeah. If you just do the that's not a knife thing, the whole Crocodile Dundee, then yeah, but damn, curse me for assuming that you're actually being serious. Okay, so right, we haven't actually finished this up. So we said, people said Nodachi, slightly. Ease of carry, yeah, they're both kind of a pain in the ass, but Nodachi is a little better. Durability and maintenance. Durability, I mean, a sword is generally gonna be more durable than a polearm, on average. Price, probably Naginata. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I would guess. So slightly more in favor of the Nodachi. Well, more than slightly, actually. Okay. How dare you pick the sword over the polearm? Okay. Oh, that's a good one. Arming sword versus Shamshir. I like it. Arming sword. Shamshir. Light armor. I would give it to the Shamshir. Just because, you know, again, slicing against light armor or unprotected. Pretty good. Heavy armor, easily arming sword. Because, again, you can stabby the gaps of the armor. Stabby gap, technical term. Open space, even ground. That's pretty... That's pretty even. I don't really think we have much of an advantage here either way. Yeah. Confined space, arming sword, because again, half sorting. Useful. Multiple attackers. Tentatively Shamshir. Tentatively. Maybe. Because again, sweeping cuts with a curved blade, generally pretty useful against multiple attackers. Ease of carry is not really going to make much of a difference. Like, I would argue a straight blade is slightly easier to carry than a strongly curved one, but whatever. It doesn't really make any substantial difference. Durability and maintenance, I don't see much of a difference here either. Price. They're basically the... I mean, not really the equivalent of one another, but... I would say the most highly decorated, precious versions of a Shamshir that I've seen are more luxurious than than the fanciest arming swords. Generally, although there are some really fancy noblemen's arming swords, so that's I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily want to make a decision here either way. So very equal. overall. At least as far as I'm concerned, but I'm still gonna ask you guys, because I'm interested. What do you prefer? So next poll coming up. Arming sword and Shamshir. So the poll is up right now. So again, refresh, hit the info icon up there. While you're there, it's also has a link to my Patreon page. Just, you know, just as a sneaky little side remark. Like I just said, the poll is should be in the upper right corner, the little info icon. You can click on there, and that's what gets you to the poll. And if you don't see it, you have to hit refresh. Should all be testable with tabs? Yeah, sure. Okay. Meat tenderizer versus meat cleaver. Yeah, that's easy. Cleaver. Tenderizer is nah. They're actually pretty light, quite often. Made of rather crappy wood. Whereas the cleaver, yeah, that's not even a contest. Interesting idea, but there's not much of a contest there in my opinion. Warhammer with top spike versus arming sword. Okay. Yeah. We can do that. Let me see, in case there's something else I can get out of the way first without going through the full analysis. Staff versus sword. Yeah, staff definitely has an advantage generally. Oh, that's an interesting one. Goblin Slayer video yet? Will you? No, not really. I don't have any plans to do that. Not particularly interested. Thanks for all that sweet content. You're welcome, and thank you. And once again, thank you everybody who is throwing in super chats. Very appreciated. Definitely helps out the channel. Oh, steel tenderizer. Okay, all steel. I would still go for the cleaver, frankly. Like, even against armor, again, you can flip it around and strike with the spine. I think there's more to work with in general there. Okay, so poll results. Where are we at? Arming sword versus Shamshir. Okay, 65% arming sword. So you guys prefer the arming sword? Unsurprising, really, since this channel focuses more on European weapons. But I do like the Shamshir that I have. And it did quite well in tests, so there's that. Alright. So that one is done. So now, what did we have again? There was, yeah, Warhammer with top spike versus arming sword. Let's see. We'll leave that here. Warhammer. Against light armor, I would give it to the sword, just because versatility and, you know, ease of use and you know, doesn't exhaust you as quickly. Heavy armor, that's a no-bo. I almost said a no-boner. I meant to say no-brainer, obviously. That's a no-boner, yeah. Open space, even ground. Again, okay, let's do this first. That's the easier one. Confined space, arming sword. Yeah. I mean, actually, it's not necessarily all that easy because Warhammers tend to be shorter, and you can also choke up on it. So actually, you know what? It's not even that easy, really. I think a Warhammer would still do very well in confined space. That's a tricky one. Because the arming sword, of course, again, you can use half sorting, you can use the point. The Warhammer has a point too, but it's just not going to be anywhere near as effective because we only have this much. But it is quite good. It is pretty damn good. You got to say that. And with a Warhammer, obviously, you can grip it anywhere you want. So I'm actually kind of tempted to give it to the hammer here in confined space and to the arming sword in an open space because it has more reach. So I kind of want to say that generally. I'll also do a poll on this. So arming sword versus Warhammer. Okay, poll is up. So once again, refresh, hit the info icon in the upper right corner and vote. Ease of carry, that's pretty easy. Arming sword is easier to carry than a Warhammer. Durability and maintenance, there is not a whole lot of maintenance you have to do with a Warhammer because even if it rusts, who cares? I mean, it's a block of, I mean, not really block, but it's a solid hunk of steel, and you don't have to maintain the edge or anything. You do have the factor that the Warhammer has a wooden handle. I mean, some have steel handles too, but a lot of Warhammers that I've seen have steel langets, which make them much more durable. Like the Warhammer made by Arms and Armor that I have, there is actually a bit of a crack in one spot in the wood, but it doesn't matter because the langets still hold everything together. Yeah, hammer. The hammer is also not going to get damaged as much as the arming sword, especially if those two collide. Yeah, the hammer is going to survive. For sure. The hammer is also cheaper. Now against multiple attackers. I kind of want to give it to the hammer too, because you can just keep that thing swinging. It's going to be more exhausting though, so that's a bit of a tricky thing. The arming sword has more reach, so you want reach against multiple attackers. So, oh, that's tricky. I think that's more of a tie in my mind. More of a tie. I mean, the Warhammer is in the lead overall. So I don't know. If I was forced at gunpoint to pick one to defend myself against multiple opponents, I might still grab the hammer. Maybe. And people think the arming sword has the advantage in a duel, which is fair. Again, I agree. Definitely open space, even ground. Definitely goes to the arming sword. Yeah, multiple attackers. You can go either way, in my opinion. You can argue one way or the other. Hammer makes you slower a bit. If you do it right, if you keep using the momentum, like if you preserve the momentum of the hammer, you keep moving it around. In other words, if you have the endurance necessary to keep going like that, then it's not super slow. I mean, sure, the sword is faster, but it's not a dramatic difference, especially since Warhammers are not as heavy as people often think. You can deflect and parry with the arming sword. You can do that with a warhammer too. Is that steel languets? The thing is, you could block a cut from an arming sword with a warhammer, but you cannot block a strike from a warhammer with an arming sword. So, it's a tricky one. I'll refresh once more and then we'll see what people think. Okay, 68% arming sword. All right. So you know what? I'll give it to the arming sword then against multiple attackers. So we're pretty even. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, pretty even overall. I mean, if you wanted to make just one sweeping statement, like if you want to say, okay, which is generally overall better, you could probably say the arming sword because the warhammer is more specialized. So in terms of versatility, the arming sword takes it, but otherwise, I do think they're pretty evenly matched overall. But yeah. Next one. Nunchuck versus flail. Okay. So nunchaku versus flail. Now here it depends on which flail you're talking about, because it makes a massive difference if we're saying this or if we're saying what do they, yeah, something like this. What's the correct term again? Yeah. I'm gonna assume you mean the other type of flail with a longer chain and a ball at the end, because this is basically a longer nunchaku almost. So let's go with that. Let's say a flail as in Morning Star. Let's put it that way. So against light armor. I mean, the flail is going to be devastating no matter what. If you have armor, if you don't have armor, it doesn't really matter. It's just... Plus, it's got more... You know what? Light armor, if you're wearing padding, the nunchaku isn't going to do a whole lot. I mean, yeah, it's going to hurt, it's going to bruise, but I don't think you'll be able to really break bone with it. So the head would be the primary target, whereas with a flail, I mean, ow. It doesn't even matter where you hit. So here, against heavy armor, that's no competition, not even close. Open space, even ground. I'd have to give it to the flail again. Confined space, yeah, nunchaku, for sure. Multiple attackers, I would say flail. Ease of carry, nunchaku by far. Durability, flail is going to be able to take more abuse. I mean, both will, but potentially more for the flail. Might not make that much of a difference though. And price, well, that's simple. So I think overall, I would say give it to the flail. Then next one. Yep, staff versus sword. I commented on that before. Espada y daga versus dadao. That's I like it. That's a pretty good one. And I have reviewed both of those. Okay, so against light armor... Battlefield. Neither of those allow you to use a shield, which is something you normally want on a battlefield. Right, I should focus more on that aspect as well, the ability to use a shield with various weapons. That makes quite a difference on the battlefield. Shield is good in general, either that or wear heavy armor. So sword and dagger versus two-hand. Also, I should probably show those two again for those who are not aware. Yep, that's the espada y daga and the dadao. There you go. Light armor. Both quite good. Quite good. I will say, though, I do consider the dadao more of a battlefield weapon. The espada y daga is really more of a dueling sort of arrangement. So we go heavy armor, definitely dadao. Although, to be fair, you have a dagger to stab the gaps in the armor. So there's definitely that. But I think the dadao hits hard enough that you could strike with a spine and be pretty effective against armor. Also got reach and power advantage, so I think it just about takes it. But again, having the dagger is good against armor for sure. Okay, open space, yeah, reach. More reach. Confined space, that's easy. If you can't use the sword, you can use the dagger, for sure. Multiple attackers. Now, this is interesting because on the one hand, you can use the larger sword quite well because you have the reach, you have the cutting power, but it is useful to have two weapons because you can actually, in some situations, if your one weapon is entangled or stuck even in one opponent, you still have another one potentially to defend yourself against another attacker. So that's a good one. That's a good question. Let us do yeah. I'm just gonna set up the poll just for general preference. Like, which do you think is better in a greater number of situations? All right, poll is ready. So, business as usual, refresh, hit the info icon, and vote. Ease of carry, espada y daga. Easier to carry than a big ass sword. Durability and maintenance. The dadao is one of those tank-like swords. It's very sturdy, robust. So I'd have to give that to the dadao. Price. The cheapest dadaos that I've seen, as far as reproductions are concerned, the dadao would be cheaper. Historically, probably still. I think probably still the dadao overall. But that might be not the greatest difference. Yeah, exactly. The dadao, super cheap, mass-produced. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the espada y daga, I think, was pretty cheap too. historically, but yeah, that I would take that. Then we have an executioner sword with a warhammer head at the tip. Be a good or at least functional weapon for both battlefield use and executions. No, absolutely not. For one, if you want a pole arm or a hafted weapon, put a pole on it or a haft. You can't really put something like that on a blade and expect it to function. I mean, a blade is supposed to be relatively thin and it's supposed to cut. It's just completely different use. You would mess up the balance, you would mess up the cutting ability, you would mess up the structural integrity, you would just screw it over. So, in short, I don't think that would be a good idea at all. Interesting idea, but would not work. Asking why staff is considered better than sword. Generally because the staff just has a massive reach advantage, unless you're talking, well, longsword, still. Staff has the reach advantage. Great sword, unless you're talking great sword. And the staff has superior striking power and leverage. And yeah, it makes it pretty difficult to get into striking distance, into measure with your sword. So, yeah. Okay, so let's check the poll on Espada y Daga versus Dadao. Okay, 63% prefer Espada y Daga over the Dadao. All right. So you know what? I'm just gonna give it one here, just because the vote prefers the Espada y Daga, and I do think they're both very viable here. I'm leaning toward multiple attackers, or toward Espada y Daga here, but yeah, this one you could also, it's debatable. I mean, they're all debatable, obviously. This is not the be-all, end-all, only true and viable answer, Kopesh versus Makwawit. Both have steel blades. It's no longer a Makwawitl if it has a steel blade, though. Like, by definition, it has to have... I mean, okay, fine. If we say wooden core with either, one long steel blade or multiple steel blades attached in the same way as it normally is. Okay, fine. Let's do that. So, steel Kopesh versus... I can never remember it. I know how to pronounce it, but I think this is how you pronounce it. But it's actually spelled this way, I think. I don't know. Let me double check that, actually. I've seen a number of different no, never mind. I probably just misremember. Okay, so that's that. So we're talking steel blades instead of obsidian. Well, so basically this. Yeah. There we go. And a Kopesh, I'm pretty sure most people are aware. So something like this. Okay. Against light armor. They're both going to be effective. For sure. Huh. That's a good one. Oh, while I deliberate here, I should also set up the poll here again. It's good to gather votes meanwhile. Okay, so steel, Khopesh. Steel, Makwa, Wheatle. Okay. So poll is up. And now choices. This can be used with both. Well, no, never mind. The ones that I've seen mostly are one-handed versions, so they're similar in that way. Reach. I think the Makwa Wheatle may be a little bit longer than the Khopesh, because usually the Khopesh is pretty short. So there's that, and against armor, the Khopesh would slice into it pretty well. I kind of want to say, Khopesh against light armor, Makwa Wheatle against heavy. Yeah, more or less. I think if made of steel, this should be a little bit heavier. Khopesh is not really one to stab into the gaps of armor. It's not very suitable for that. He could strike with a spine, but I think, yeah, in this case, on open space, I think I would say Makwa Wheatle here, Khopesh in confined space because it is more compact. Multiple attackers. It's pretty even. So I think I'll let the vote decide here. Ease of carry. I think it would be easier to carry the Khopesh. Durability, that easily goes to the Khopesh if it's made, you know, like this is a steel blade. This can get damaged more easily because it has the wooden core. It's cheaper to make though. Okay, what do people say? Vote is, well, we only have 14 responses so far, so that's, I gotta wait a little longer. Wooden core would get damaged while bashing on armor. Yeah, that is a good point, but the Khopesh would also get damaged. Unless you really only strike with the spine. And it depends on the type of wood. If you use something like ironwood, it can take quite a bit of abuse. It also depends on the thickness of it. But, I mean, you can... Yeah, this is debatable for sure. Let's see. I'm going to refresh here and see where the vote is at now. This time I didn't point out how you get to the poll, and it's noticeably fewer votes. So I guess I have to repeat it every time. But it's still pretty clear. We don't have a whole lot of responses, but we have 86% in favor of the Khopesh, so that's fair. So let's give it to the Khopesh here. So the Khopesh overall wins. And I think that's reasonable. I would say so. Then next up, Talwar versus Messer. So here is the Talwar or Tulwar. And there is the Messer. All right, so against light armor, both very good. Both quite good. In fact, so much so that I struggle to really make a distinction here. I think the Messer is going to be better against heavy armor because half sorting is more of a thing here. Again, not being strongly curved. I think... I'm not sure exactly what the average length of the Talwar is. I think the Messer might be a little longer. The other thing is, here I really like the versatility of the Messer because you can use it in quite a number of ways. The handle is long enough to use it with both hands if you have to, whereas the Talwar is just... it locks your hand into one position. It's got this the disc at the end of the grip that just really prevents you from really doing anything other than a hammer grip. Whereas with the Messer, you can use a variety of different grips. You can use a variety of techniques. You can use, again, half sorting, etc., etc. But of course, this may very well be just my bias speaking because I'm much more familiar with the Messer than with the Talwar. So take that with a grain of salt. So I need your opinion on this. So, Talwar versus Messer. I mean, there's going to be bias no matter what, because you've seen the Messer in my videos. I've reviewed it, or several. I've done tests with it. I've talked about it, whereas I've never covered the Talwar. So there's going to be bias here no matter what. We can probably say that it's going to win just because of the focus of this channel and the overall preferences of people who watch this stuff, I think. I'm trying to put in the poll here and it doesn't want to do it. Let me refresh that sucker. Come on. Do the thing. Do it. Talwar, Messer, create. There it is. Okay, so now the poll is ready. So once again, refresh the video and hit the info thing. Confined space. I mean, both are good here. The Talwar is a fairly compact saber, but again, due to the versatility, at least the way I see it, Messer wins. The problem is, though, because of my bias, I'm just going to be like, yep. Not really here, but I'm just going to say, you know, it's up to me. I'm just going to say, yep. Price? I mean, yeah, I think the Messer, it was made in such a way to be accessible to commoners, so I think we can say that. Durability, maintenance, I don't see much of a difference here. Ease of carry, again, not much of a difference. This is very one-sided. I mean, this is hella one-sided. And this may very well be one-sided out of ignorance. So keep that in mind. Isn't the Messer very short? No, not necessarily. Somewhat, actually. The thing is, the Talwar is also quite short, and Messers come in a variety of different lengths, and a lot of them are almost arming size length. So they can be pretty long, and they have a long handle. So let's see what the poll is saying so far. 38 responses, 78% Messer. Yeah, so unsurprisingly, the bias is there. I would have to discuss this with somebody who has experience with Indian martial arts, because they may have ideas. Yeah, the big one. That's true. But not the Kriegsmesser though, not the two-handed. I mean the, well, basically hand and a half. Oh, there's a Streamlabs donation. Sorry if I'm overlooking things. There's a lot to cover here, so it's hard to catch up with everything, but let me check right now. Go away. The announcement thingy. Yeah, there is. Okay. Yeah, sorry for overlooking that, Lycan. Kriegsmesser versus Montante. Okay. That's an interesting one. The difficulty here really is in keeping up with all the suggestions, because there are so many good suggestions, and I spend so much time on each one. But I don't want to just be like this. Like 5-second decision. That's kind of lame. Right? Yeah, so Messer definitely wins here. Okay. Next one. Yeah, you know what? Since I overlooked yours, let me just grab that right now. So Kriegsmesser. I know why I did that. Montante. Light armor. I'll say Messer, I think. Uh-oh. What'd I do? Okay, yeah, I'll say come on. I'll say Messer here. Heavy armor. Yeah, Montante. You can actually half sword with the Montante pretty well. With the Kriegsmesser, not so much, because again, curved blade, you can do it to an extent, but it's a lot harder. Yeah, open space, even though that's easy. Reach and power win. Confined space, that's again easy. Multiple attackers, that's literally what the Montante was designed for, among other things. That was like its primary use. Ease of carry, again easy. Durability and maintenance, they're going to be very similar here, aside from the fact that the larger sword is a bit more of a pain in the ass to maintain. I mean, to clean, keep clean and oil, but it's not really enough to give the edge to one or the other. Messer should be cheaper though. So Messer just about wins, but not by much. They're pretty equal. All right, that was way faster. I should probably do it more like this. Just a bit quicker. Guandao versus Naginata. Okay. Naginata. Right off the bat, heavy armor. The Guandao is a heavy sucker, so it'll do a lot better against armor. But the Naginata is going to be more agile and not as exhausting to use. This is difficult. I mean, in confined space, the Guandao is just too clunky, I think. Open space, you can. I mean, power versus speed. This is what we're talking about here, basically. I would say against multiple attackers, Guandao, easy carry, Naginata, easy. That should be pretty even. Tie here. Price, I think Naginata, maybe, but I'm not sure about that. I don't know. So, So let's do another poll for those two. Poll. So Naginata and Guandao. All right. And there we go. So poll ready. Hit refresh. Hit the pointing in the wrong direction. Info icon up there, upper right. Okay, there. Yeah, this is basically the one thing where, you can definitely argue either way. Again, Guandao has a power. I think it may be longer too. Yeah, I think it is longer. So longer, more power. I would tentatively give it to the Guandao here. Yeah, I think so. So very even. Unsurprisingly, really, two pole arms. But we will see what you guys think. But meanwhile, I'll start with the next one. Spear versus pike. That's an interesting one. Spear versus pike. So I think in this case, I would probably have to say spear because a fish isn't very useful in combat, right? Just to troll you a little bit. Or of course talking about the weapon. So the pike is very long, like really long. So on the battlefield, well, let's put it this way. If we have two formations, one pike formation and one spear formation, the pike formation is probably going to wreck the spears. So I think on the battlefield we can just hand it to the pike, just straight up. In a duel, I mean, confined space, yeah, spear. Obviously, the pike is, you wouldn't even fit the pike into a confined space. It doesn't even, you can't, like, it doesn't even work. The pike is really not much of a dueling weapon. It would just be so, like, comparatively unwieldy compared to a spear that I don't think it does well outside of a formation. So there is that ease of carry easily. Spear would also be spear would be cheaper. Pike is probably more durable though, just because it's more massive. Multiple attackers. Spear though, because if you're dealing with somebody at like basically across, well, it's not going to be a room, but if you're dealing with somebody who's far enough away that you can actually poke them with a point, then the others can probably just run around you and flank you or attack you from the sides or whatever. So you would be kind of screwed in that way. So the pike would be just the battlefield choice, but the spear for everything else, really. Okay, so the poll. Let's check it out, bro. People prefer the Naginata over the Guandao. I mean, we don't have a lot of responses, though. We have 26, so that's really low. But 69% in favor of the Naginata. That's what we get. Clear all this out, and then How far am I behind? Oh man, I'm really far behind. Sorry guys. Quarterstaff versus bow staff. I think I can just do this quickly. Personally, I prefer the quarterstaff because it's longer and thicker usually, and yeah, more reach, hits harder. But of course, confined space bow might be a little better. There's that. Yeah, I commented on that. On that. Mead guy. Oh yeah, mead is good. I like mead. I drink very rarely, almost never, but mead is good. Lantern shield versus Russian torch. Oh come on. No shields though. Sorry, no shields. I mean, yeah, it's a nice trolley suggestion, but it's yeah. Let's not do shields or bucklers or anything like that. No ranged weapons either, preferably. Not because it's a bad suggestion. It is a good suggestion, but it doesn't really fit with a lot of my criteria here. Like dual, confined space, this and that. It doesn't really work too well. But that's just because of the categories that I picked. There's nothing wrong with your suggestion. I might do that another time. Yeah, I commented on that. Halberd versus poleaxe. That's a good one. So what we're talking about is, I mean, everybody knows halberd is already right here, even though pike. Anyway, and poleaxe, for those who don't know, it's this sucker here. The knightly poleaxe was used mainly in judicial duels, for example, but also on the battlefield against other armored knights. And it's generally shorter than the halberd, and it's got the kind of meat tenderizing bit, this hammer part there. Okay, so against light armor, I would say on the battlefield I would give that to the halberd. Reach and probably the slightly better cutting blade on average, I would say. And I'll also set up the pole for this. Halberd versus poleaxe. All right, so that pole is up as well. So once again, do the thing. And against heavy armor, definitely poleaxe. That's literally what it's designed for. That's its main strength. Open space. They're both going to be very good. This is one of those things where when you use the reach advantage of a halberd, you're going to have the upper hand. As soon as the fighter with the poleaxe manages to close in, that's where you're in trouble. But I'd say even ground open space goes to the halberd. Confined space, easily poleaxe. It's going to be more useful. Against multiple attackers. Now, both can be quite good here. Quite good indeed. Ease of carry is going to be poleaxe. It's just a little more compact. Generally, they're both a pain in the ass to carry, but a little bit. This, I think I'll have to give the poleaxe because it's a very robust piece of steel, and it's generally got the steel languettes. I don't think most halberds have the languettes. So there is that. Price. I think here the halberd is actually cheaper. Cheaper to produce. Yeah, multiple attackers. I want to say, tricky. To me, this is really more of a tie. They would both be very useful. that situation's more of a tie. Okay. So let's see what the poll is saying. What do you guys think? Head to head. 55% in favor of the halberd, but we only have 20 responses, so we can definitely get more. That's an interesting one. Flanged mace versus Morningstar mace. Okay. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at this. So they're pretty similar. Like the poleaxe has a slight edge. He's edgier, yo. So flanged mace versus spiked mace. So here we're talking, yeah, basically this versus, yeah, this maybe, or this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's going to be difficult. I can tell you that. It's going to be difficult to decide how to allocate the golden pommel. I will check the poll again before I start. Okay, halberd still has a slight advantage here, 53%. Yeah, so almost exactly equal, but people slightly prefer the halberd. Slightly. Okay, so next poll is flanged mace versus spiked mace. Okay, poll is up. So now, and while you take the poll, consider signing up on Patreon, which is also there. I'ma be shillin'. Okay, so light armor. I mean, both really perform very similar functions in terms of messing with armor. I want to say the spike mace is going to be a little better against light armor, because if you have soft armor, the padding may absorb a lot of the impact force, but the spikes will probably just try to tear it apart and kind of shred it and make it less effective over time. So there, but the flanged mace I think is better against armor, simply because it's more durable, more robust. I mean, that's a different category, of course, but the spikes, there's going to be more different spikes, so I think you have a chance of contacting more different spikes at the same time, which distributes the force. Each individual spike, of course, has a very small point, but it may still absorb and deflect a little more than with the flanged mace. At the same time, the surface on the flanged mace is larger, so I said this is a difficult one. Okay, open space doesn't matter. This really does not matter, because they basically are the same size usually, or they can be at the very least. Can be exact same length, everything basically. It's the same weapon except different striking surface. So doesn't really matter for any of this. I kind of want to say flanged mace against multiple attackers because the spike could maybe get stuck. Maybe. Then again, it doesn't make enough of a difference, really. Flanged mace, way easier to carry. Do you want to have spikes dangling next to your leg? I don't. And then durability, flanged is also going to take it just because the spikes can be damaged more easily. They can bend. And in fact, bent spikes on a mace really suck. They make it a lot less effective. Price? I think this... I kind of want to say spike because you can get a... Basically, if you have a wooden club with nails in it, that's basically a spiked mace. So the simplest, crudest, cheapest version you can make, yeah, definitely here. Yeah. So overall, in my opinion, the flanged mace wins, but what do you people think? What does the poll say? Oh yeah, easy, 96%. Wow, that's the most decisive so far. 96% of you prefer flanged over spiked. Yeah, spikes are for BDSM degenerates. That's a little rude, isn't it? But yeah, it's definitely flanges. Okay. Next up. Longsword versus flintlock pistol. No ranged. No guns, please. Let's keep this a little simpler. Next one is also firearm. Yeah, I want to keep ranged weapons out of this to make things easier and to fit the categories that I have better. We may do ranged weapons in another video if you like this kind of thing. And this is not weapons, but people. So, sorry, not that. So I finally caught up. Took quite a while to catch up with all these, but I finally did, unless there is another Streamlabs that I have missed. Let me just double check here. Streamlabs. Dashboard. No, okay, I'm all caught up. Yay! I managed. Okay, so now I can actually look at the regular chat. So once again, sorry everybody that I haven't been able to look at the regular chat. It just took a while to catch up here. Oh, you mean an unloaded musket? Okay then. With or without bayonet though? That would be important. You can just put that in the regular chat. I'm looking at it right now. You don't have to do another super chat. Especially since the chat isn't going at breakneck speed right now, so I can look at it right now. Longsword versus rapier, that's a good one. Longsword versus katana, saber versus side sword. Lots of good ideas here. Okay, no bayonet. All right, so let's do this then. So, actually, no, let's not. Let's not, because the man catcher is garbage. I'm just gonna. This is my decision. I rule that the man catcher is garbage. I mean, this is not for fighting. This is for abducting people. So, I will accept unloaded musket in melee, but the man catcher is crap. No. Forget about it. But thanks anyway. Okay, so flanged mace versus torch. Just a regular burning stick. Yeah, mace. Certainly, yeah. Certainly mace. Oh, Falx versus katana. I like it. Falx versus. And we will put a poll up because that definitely interests me what you guys think on this one. Okay, so Falx versus Katana. All right, poll is up. Refresh. Clicky. Okay. Light armor. If it was unarmored, I'd give it to the Katana here. Light armor, though. The Falx wrecks armor. We know that. But the Katana is also very good against light armor. I mean, if you have something like a Gambison, Katana will do just fine. Plus it can thrust. Yeah, you know what? Thrusts. You can thrust with a Falx. It's just more difficult. So I think because of the ability to use thrusts, I will give it to the Katana here. And then against heavy armor, I will give it to the Falx. Because the Katana against heavy armor is kind of gets damaged easily and can't really have sword with it very well. And, you know, number of issues. So, yeah, Falx. Open space. I think reach-wise, they're pretty comparable. Katana may have a little more reach. Generally, the Falxes, if that's the plural that I've seen so far, have a relatively short-ish blade. Longer handle, though. The Katana has a guard at all. It's a small one, but it does have one. I think I'd give that one to the Katana. Or do I? I'm not sure. The Falx is brutal. Like, seriously. And in confined space... I'd have to say Katana. Because, you know, the almighty EI draw right from the sheath and slaughter them all. Plus thrusts, again. Multiple attackers, yeah, give me a Falx. Personally. Yeah. I think the Falx would really wreck things. I mean, it's more likely to get stuck. I'll say that. But I think if you were to strike with the spine of a Falx, that would be more effective than with a Katana. So there's that. And you have... If you're dealing with multiple attackers, you may end up in situations where you're under heavy pressure and you have to react very quickly in a suboptimal way, and the Falx is easier to use. You just lash out at them, you just hit them with the point, and yeah, it'll wreck them. Basically, that's kind of the thing. Ease of carry... I find a Katana is easier to draw. The Falx is a bit of a hassle to draw out of its scabbard. Durability, well, okay, now it depends. Are we talking modern reproductions or are we talking originals? Because original Falx was made of, I think, of iron. Modern reproductions... Durability is not the Katana's strength, I would say, unless it's made of modern crucible steel. Plus, if you lose the edge completely, like if you have so much edge damage that it won't cut at all, you can still use the Falx because you can still kind of tear and cut with just the point. If the katana loses its edge completely, it's basically just a metal bar. So I would give that to the Fox and the price, because katanas are rather pricey. Yeah, what do we do with this here? Open space. I'm still undecided on that. So what does the poll say? 70% katana. You're a bunch of weebs. Just kidding, of course. But yeah, 70% prefer the katana. Yeah, in light of that poll result, I'll just give it to the katana here. So the katana has one pommel more. All right. So here we go. And you know what? I would agree with that in general. In terms of versatility, the katana takes it home here, I think. The Fox is more specialized. I like it. I actually prefer to do tests with the Fox because it's weird in a lot of ways, and it leads to interesting results. But yeah, overall, I can agree with this for sure. What do we have then? Sword and buckler versus rapier and dagger. Huh. Yeah. Let's do it. He's a good man. Sword and buckler. Rapier and dagger. Okay. Yes, the Fox is a shield killer. That's very true. Very true. Katana against shield, not so much. Not good. Okay. So the next poll is this. Sword and buckler, rapier and dagger. There we go, and the poll is up. Hit refresh, click the info icon. Yes. Light armor. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to say the rapier is not a battlefield weapon. It was never designed as such. It doesn't really work well on the battlefield. Sword and buckler can be used on the battlefield and was. So yeah. Open space. I want to say potentially rapier and dagger, because rapier thrusts can be very quick, difficult to deal with, a lot of reach. Confined space is easily sword and buckler, no question. Well, okay, maybe not easily. It depends a little bit on in which direction it's confined. If you're in like a long hall where you're confined on the sides by the walls, but back and forth you have plenty of space, then rapier and dagger still does very well. So that depends. In fact, you know what? In that case, it's pretty even actually. The buckler is very useful, but the dagger is also going to be very useful in confined space. So yeah, if we're talking like a corridor, some kind of long hall or something like that, where you don't have, yeah, like I just said, don't have to repeat it. Multiple attackers. This is where the rapier is not good. You don't want to thrust at multiple attackers. Easily sword and buckler. Ease of carry, rapier and dagger. Definitely. Longer blade, but carrying the buckler is a bit of a pain. Durability maintenance. Sword and buckler. Slight advantage here. Price. Neither is really cheap. Yeah. I would say Sword and buckler on durability and maintenance, probably a little bit better, just a little bit. Also, with regards to the fact that keeping a complex hilt clean and rust-free is a bit of a challenge compared to just a standard cruciform sword. So yeah, what is the poll saying? Yeah, there's a good point here. Rapier beats sword in confined space because the rapier's thrust can be used fully. It would be hard to dodge while the sword cannot properly cut without hitting the walls. That is true. You can thrust with the sword just fine, of course, but yeah. And you do have the dagger. The dagger is very useful in confined space. So you know what? Let's give it to the rapier and dagger for confined space. So sword and buckler still takes it overall, but it's close. Let's see. So we check the poll. Okay, 65% in favor of sword and buckler. All right. Makes sense. Buster Blade, sword versus gunblade, just joking, yeah. Good stream, thank you. So I think that's enough for now. We've been going for over 2 hours, and I'm just caught up just now. So let's stop here now that I have a chance to get away, so to speak. But let me know what you think about this stream. Was it fun? That's what I was trying to achieve here, and it was definitely interesting to do that while, you know, letting you vote and all. That's a good thing for sure. Wait, where is the thing? There. Okay. So yeah, what do you think? Would you like me to do this sort of thing more often, where we focus on different things like ranged weapons, firearms, etc., maybe with different categories, stuff like that? Okay, looks like you do like it. Good. I should probably... I was going to say I should probably edit this and put it up. You know what? I'll do that next time. Next time I do a stream like this, I'll do this again. Let's treat this as a test run, kind of. So next time I do this again, I will record a local version of this that I have available in higher quality that I can then edit and put up afterwards. I mean, I will still leave this up, just the long version as it is. And the next time I will optimize things a little bit, you know, arrange the windows maybe in a better way, and then also show the poll results instead of just reading them out, things like that. How about that? Does that sound good? Doesn't matter if it sounds good, I'll do it anyway. So yeah, consider talking about weapons and armor, choosing a topic and discuss rather than doing verses. I mean, you can do that too, but I do like the verses because then I can let people vote on things. That's pretty good. You know? Improvised weapons. Oh yeah, we can do that as well, for sure. So, sounds good. So, thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you very much for all the super chats. Highly appreciated. Helps out. And yeah, again, consider becoming a patron. So then you can actually get announcements for stuff like this in advance before it happens. And you can also get all the recorded versions of live streams, etc. Whereas in cases like this, most of the live streams I put unlisted as bonus content for patrons. So yeah, thank you. See you next time and have a good one, folks.